Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year 2024. I would like to welcome you back to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy at coaching services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalai.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 9th episode of season 19, a very special guest and caregiver to a child dealing with high-functioning autism, Laurie Moser. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Laurie, the floor is yours.
Hi, Dr. Dan. I just wanted to thank you for having me on your podcast, A Happiness Journey. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
And my name is Laurie, and I am the founder of Staying Active Health and Wellness. I'm an advocate for moms who have teens struggling with mental health challenges. And after 7 years in the fitness industry and facing these challenges with my own child, I know firsthand that taking care of ourselves has a huge impact on our ability to care for those around us. So through my online course and my group support program, I provide moms with self-care tools to equip them to handle the daily challenges of raising a child with mental health challenges, and a sense of community so they can connect with like-minded moms and with themselves. And my my kind of pivotal moment was a few years ago. I was sitting, we'd had a crisis with my daughter. She has Asperger's, which is now classified as level 1 on the autism. So it's like high functioning autism. So where she really struggled was with her social communication interactions with her peers. So once she started school, that's where we really saw the challenges. And then it got worse. As you know, junior high is hard for all kids, but
Absolutely.
especially with any kid, right? Those are just, I think, some of the hardest years. But when you have a child who's struggling with mental health challenges, it's just exasperated. So that's really where it got really challenging for us, is the junior high years. And we had a mental health crisis in junior high. And I remember sitting on my bed, just feeling hopeless and heartbroken and paralyzed in that moment about what to do. I just wanted probably someone like you, Dr. Dan. I wanted someone to come in and tell me what to do, give me the answers, give me the solutions. How do I fix this? But I realized that I couldn't control or fix my daughter, that the only thing that I could take control of or fix was my own mental health and well-being. And that if I wanted to be there for her, because I was feeling exhausted, burned out, and then resentful because I was so tired. And I realized that if I wanted to help and support her along this path, I was going to have to look after my own mental health and well-being, because feeling exhausted and burned out was not going to allow me to show up and be the type of parent and caregiver that I wanted to be for her. So that's when I realized I had to take control of my own mental health and well-being. So I just started so small. I started with a journaling practice, 5 minutes. I thought, what can I do? 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I started with 5 minutes a day consistently, and that's all I did for months. And then I built on that because I realized the profound effects. And it's not like I woke up after journaling and felt amazing. It was just daily. I noticed it made a difference. And then one day I noticed, oh, that really makes a difference. And when I feel really upset and angry and I journal, it's like this burden has been lifted off. And then I added movement and breathing exercises, some other things. But I just started with one thing, one self-care practice.
That's one of the most important things to start with, actually, because some people, they love their, either significant other or children, and they forget about themselves. But just like in the airplane analogy, you have to put your mask first before
Yep.
putting the mask for your kids or whatever was around you. So that's really something crucial for people to understand. But we forget ourselves in the
Yes.
process. Now, when it comes to your daughter, Madeline, how old was she when you knew that there was like something off?
Yeah, it's interesting because now that I think back, now that I have that perspective, I remember when she was actually because at lots of people that have Asperger's, they don't like some of the symptoms are, well, big social interaction problems. They have problems with friendships and social interactions. Lots of them, they don't like loud noises and lots of stimulation going on. So what we noticed when she was 7 weeks old as a baby, so newborn, and put her into her own room in her own crib, she slept through the night. So right from 7 weeks old, I mean, I didn't understand that at that time, but she liked her own space. And then as a child, like even as a toddler, she wasn't really ever one of those that liked being hugged and touched. She liked her own space. So even back then, I could see how, unlike my other kids, she liked her own space. She didn't like to be cuddled and held a lot. So that was a sign. And then in preschool, she was very like, especially, I mean, I'm using a stereotype here, but especially for a little girl, she was very aggressive for a little girl. And I realize now as a mom, it's probably because she felt so frustrated, right, with the social interactions with her peers. So we saw signs then, and then at age 5, we got her official diagnosis, which as a parent, I think of a diagnosis, what I did is, or what it did for me and for my husband, it helped us to understand her. So instead of feeling, well, like a failure as a parent, right? Like what we had one older daughter who was relatively very easy, our first child. So you think you're doing something wrong. So there's this shame and failure as a parent, you feel. So the diagnosis helped me to understand that, okay, we weren't doing things wrong, but at the same time, what worked for our oldest daughter was not going to work for her. So I had to learn new parenting skills. That took a long time and a lot of work.
Oh, for sure. But the fact that she's highly functional or level 1 autism,
Yes.
um, in terms of school, etc., is it like the Rain Man? No, Rain Man was a bit severe, but is she
Yeah.
good in math? Is she does she loves numbers and all, or is it something that is like a savant of some sort?
No, she's not like that. But yeah, so in terms like academically, which was really fortunate, like she's very bright. So she always did really well in school. So we're fortunate in that school was never a struggle for her. So at times, actually, until a teacher got to know her, like looking at her, and when you first interacted with her, you wouldn't have known anything. And she did really well in school, has actually done better and better as she's gotten older. But it was the social interactions that were really challenging. So I think for her, that's when junior high and high school, those years were so hard, right? Because that's when your peer interactions are everything.
But was she the one seeking for the interaction with others, or others didn't want to be able to deal with her? What was the middle there?
Yeah, it was interesting because we looked like she could always, because she was quite outgoing, she could always make friends really easily. So she made friends easily. It was the key, the friendship skills. So it was the keeping of the friends. So those social interaction skills, like even one of the cues, like body language.
Yes.
You and I are able to, like, if I'm upset with you or you're upset with me, we can see it without
You can sense
us
it.
saying anything. That for most adults, people that have children that have Asperger's, that's very challenging. They don't pick up on those body cues. So you can imagine you're a teenager and not picking up on those cues from your peers.
I see.
So yeah, that's where it got really challenging for her, was the social interaction. So I think she just felt like she never fit in, and then she kind of isolated herself from her peers as a way to protect herself. So I think those were very lonely, isolating years for her.
So in the case, like you just talk about social interaction, in the case of level 1 autism, if let's say someone is annoyed, let's say if she asks too many questions, she will not sense them being annoyed, so she'll continue asking questions. But then if she realized, you said right after that she realized that she annoyed, then she kind of like secluded herself. So she's aware of other people's feelings and emotion. So where's the miss, I would say, the being misled? If she understands
Yeah.
they're annoyed and she isolate herself because of that, so she's aware of those other people's emotion, but the level 1 autism doesn't show any distinction there.
Yeah, so that was such a challenge, right? Because if you were having a conversation with her and she was going on and you had the face of looking annoyed, she didn't realize it at that time. So even later, until someone explained it to her. So if I was having that interaction with her, it would be not till I explained to her, oh, when you kept going on or interrupting was a big thing. So when you kept interrupting us during the conversation, that's why I was getting upset. That's why I had that kind of anger face. And then she would, like a light bulb moment, oh, that's what that means. But I think with her peers, unless she had had a teacher there, right, saying, oh, that interaction I saw with so and so, this is why they were probably upset. I don't think she knew why her peers were then upset with her. And it's not like a teenager is going to come and say, oh, this is why we were upset with you. So I think it was lots of misunderstanding of her feeling that her peers were being mean to her, when a lot of the times she didn't pick up on maybe body cues, and then they didn't come back to explain, because they're
Yeah.
teenagers, why they were upset. And so she felt very isolated and not understanding why these peers were not, why these friendships weren't working.
So, but when she's being told, does she understand next time around not to do the same thing, or she still forget, she has like very secluded amnesia and she repeats the same behavior?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember, because I had asked that too to a doctor, and he was saying the thing about high functioning autism, Asperger's, is into, like, they might not intuitively, like you and I can't pick up on these body cues, but intellectually she can learn it. So the younger she gets help, so this is what I would stress to any parent, to the younger they, I think with anything, right? The younger they get help, the better the prognosis, right? Because they can learn these.
Heard that.
So now she's 19 years old now,
Okay.
and she's actually going to university in another country, her own choice. So
Wow.
she's doing just amazing. So I can assure parents that intellectually they can learn these things. So now, if we're having so say she was home at Christmas time, we're having a conversation, she can see that I'm upset. I don't even now have to say to her, after have to explain, oh, I was really upset with you. She can see, she can understand now and say, oh, she might still be a little confused and say, are you upset with me? I'll say, yeah, I am. But she now intellectually understands those.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really neat to see that.
And so the sooner the infant is diagnosed with autism level 1, and if they get the appropriate help at a young age, can they bury those symptoms of Asperger, which means that they will come out less and less as they get older, or this is something that is so ingrained that will never really change through adulthood? How does that work? Because the sooner they know, the better treatment they get, and that may dissipate the symptoms that come into future, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, and I'm not a doctor or expert on any of this, but yes, the younger they get help, 100%, the better the prognosis. I think they always, like, I don't think it goes away. I think they always have it, but the younger they learn these tools, right? With how to pick up on body cues intellectually, what tools they need to interact better with peers and other people. Then, yeah, they're able to form relationships, healthy friendships, and they're able to learn these things so much easier, so that they can navigate life that much easier, right? I think they always have it, but I think it becomes something that they're easily enough work with if they get help with their younger and understand it and know the tools that they need. Because you can imagine, if you always had these challenges and thought, what's wrong with me? And why can't I form friendships? Why are social interactions so hard for me? And you didn't get a diagnosis till you were an adult, how much more challenging that would be for you. So I think getting that diagnosis when you're 5 years old, and if you have that support and help from parents, caregivers, there's there's so much help for you, right? So much hope and prognosis for you, and tools that you can use.
So, to listeners who are actually listening to this podcast, especially if you have more than one kid that has autism, or even you have one, but the other siblings are completely okay. When you put one attention over a kid over the other, how does that create the rivalry between siblings? I mean, do the other kid feel that mommy is putting more attention to Madeline versus me, and that creates more not anger but resentment towards the kid who has the mental health challenge? How does that work, and how can parents juggle all that?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think number one, for parents that are single parents, my hat's off to them. I think it's such a hard job to parent. Anyways, parent a child with mental health challenges. And then if you're a single parent, I think that's when finding a support group is absolutely crucial, because I just think you can't do it by yourself. So I was fortunate in that I have a very supportive husband. So we parented, so when I found it hard, he was there to pick me up, vice versa. So that made a huge difference, having that support. And then as far as the kids, I like, yeah, I think they found it challenging that at certain times 100% more time had to be put on counseling, therapy lessons, going to doctor appointments. Just more time had to be put on her and the issues that she was going through. So I'm sure they felt that at times, but at the same time, like what I've noticed now, that my youngest is 12, my oldest is 21, and my son is 16, is that they have that much more compassion and understanding for mental health challenges. So I look at that actually as a blessing, in that I don't think they would have had the same understanding or compassion for people with mental health challenges that they now do. So it's also made them much more compassionate and understanding.
And more self-aware as well. So if
100%.
yeah, if they have friends who are dealing with Asperger, they can sense it immediately.
Yeah, and actually I had my son say, he's in grade 11, and I had him say to me a while ago, yeah, I think one of my friends has some mental health challenges. Because and he didn't elaborate on what it was, and I didn't ask him, but I don't think he would have noticed that, picked up on that, if yeah. So they've learned a lot too.
So now that your daughter left for university to another country, is she in good relationship with with her sibling? Is she interacting with them regularly, or is now that she's gone into another world, this is more like okay, well, I'll see you at the next holiday?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because one of the symptoms of Asperger's too is they can get highly focused on just one thing.
Correct.
So she's over there, and it was her choice to go over there, and she's studying really hard. So she's working really hard. So even I, as her mom, will have to, like, one time I went a couple weeks without hearing from her, and I'll have to say, I just want to know that you're okay. Just call me to let me know that you're okay. So I know it's not her being rude or not wanting to talk to me. She just gets singularly focused on what she's doing. So I know she doesn't have that much to do with her siblings while she's gone. When she was home at Christmas, it was really good. And it's kind of interesting to see the dynamics, because her and her brother are the closest. Whereas I think her oldest sibling, her sister, because they're so very different, they're not as close, if they ever will be. I don't know, but when she's home, she's certainly wants to interact with her siblings.
Okay. Do Asperger, I would say patient, are also have the OCD tendency by any chance?
Some of them can, but she hasn't really. So she hasn't been too, no, she hasn't been too obsessive about anything. So more so what we've noticed as parents, and this was one of the things we really had to learn, which could make traveling challenging, but I think as a parent, if you know this, you can make plan for your trip to be a success. Then she really needed her own space. So with 4 kids going on holidays, we had to make sure she had her own room. And
Wow.
especially she got older, and if she didn't have her own room, everybody suffered. So that was a challenge, and that's something I certainly understand all families can't do. But knowing if we wanted to go on a holiday and we wanted it to be good, she had to have her own room, because she needed that space. She just needed that space to decompress and not have even her family around her. She needed that, and we needed to understand that as her parents.
So how old was she when you noticed the first major crisis of her behavior, or the way that she interacted with other, or that she panicked because she was like around 20 people? Did you sense that? You said 7 weeks old, but I'm sure that when she was 5, it
Yeah.
was more accentuated.
Yes. Yeah. And actually five. Five was exact. It was starting kindergarten, right? And we didn't know it then. And this would be another reason I think it's so beneficial for parents to know, because it helps you to advocate for your kid, especially with teachers, right? So her kindergarten teacher, and I can understand this, thought that she was just really disobedient because she didn't like to sit down. She would kind of act out and had problems with her peers. So she thought she was being really disobedient. So then that interaction with her and with the teacher and my daughter was not good. So for starting out your first year of school, when you have a negative interaction with the teacher and with school, that's not good, right? So that's when we noticed some problems. That's when we got her an assessment. And then moving forward, so like grade 1, I'd always have a parent teacher meet. So I would tell any parent, make sure at the start of the year, I mean, obviously not the first few days, but it's chaos for the teacher, but
Right.
make sure you have a meeting with that teacher and explain, because it helps the teacher to understand that, oh, my child's not acting out to be bratty or disobedient. They have these challenges, they have this issue. So that, and also as a parent, you can say, this is what we have found that really works. So we could actually say to a teacher, if you see she's getting really agitated in class, let her go out of the classroom just to cool down. And they would actually do this. We had teachers, because it benefits the classroom and the
Of
teacher
course.
too. So knowing your kid and being able to say to a teacher, this is what we have found really works, that made such a difference.
Wow. And so when she was around a lot of kids at that young age, did she act out because she didn't want to be around the people, or did she act out because she wanted to have the attention of one teacher over the others? Because as dealing with Asperger, you want to have more of a one-on-one versus 1/20.
Yeah, I think the acting out, I think it was, yeah, being overstimulated. Like all of a sudden you're in a classroom with 20 other little kids, right? And it's loud and noisy and lots going on. So I think the overstimulation was a lot for her to handle. And then I think, yeah, the peer relations, right? Like that's when they're really learning how to play with each other. So in understanding, taking turns, share, like all that stuff they learn in kindergarten, I think that was just really challenging for her. So then at age 5, not knowing how to deal with it, which a lot of 5-year-olds don't know how to deal with, but that